Welcome to A Walk in the Park with Gil. My name is Gil Penalosa, and I was born in Bogota, Colombia, where as head of parks, I led the design and construction of over 200 parks and took a small program called Ciclovia Open Streets and turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. Every Sunday, the city opens 120 kilometers, 75 miles of streets to people and closes them to cars. And then magic happens. Over 1 million people come out to walk, run, bike, play, and mostly to enjoy meeting each other as equals. 17 years ago, I created 880 Cities, a non-profit organization based in Toronto, Canada, where I live. As of the start of the pandemic, I had worked in 345 cities in all continents. This bi-weekly web talk is a way of giving back, always free, each time with fascinating guests who present on parks and cities. And then we have a dialogue. I team up with 880 Cities and Waterfront Parks, where I was elected chair twice and now serve as ambassador. I hope you'll find these bi-weekly sessions interesting and useful. We have two mayors, and when I say stunning Victorias, maybe it sounds a little bit cheesy, the name, and it's my fault, but I love the two cities. It's two cities that have so much green everywhere, on the streets, on the sidewalks, on the parks, on the trails, and they continue to improve. Sometimes people say, oh, but I'm not New York, I don't have 10 million people. I'm not Mexico, I don't have 20 million. No, medium-sized and small cities also have to work on being greener. And these are two of the greener cities in the world. They are really magnificent. We have Mayor Lisa Helps from Victoria, British Columbia in Canada, who is an amazing leader who has led the construction of a network of protected bikeways, part of the greening, connecting the parks, the medium, the small, the large. And we have Ana Oregi, who's the deputy mayor of Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain. I fell in love with Vitoria-Gasteiz. Some people go to the Basque region and they go to San Sebastian. And I think, honestly, God was a little bit more generous with San Sebastian, but then put magnificent people in Vitoria that turned it into an even better city. I love Vitoria-Gasteiz. On weekdays, on weekends, and daytime and nighttime is safe and enjoyable. But everybody's connected not to listen to me, but to listen to these two leaders in these two magnificent cities to tell us how did they become green, how they continue to bring in, what is the future. I think that once the pandemic is moving on, it's even more important to realize that mental health, that sustainability, that equity is important, and that we need to tackle climate change. And this is something that the two of them are doing very, very well. We're going to start with Lisa Helps, who's the mayor of Victoria in British Columbia in Canada. Once she's finished, then we are going to have Anna's presentation about Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain. And then we're going to have a dialogue, and I will include some of the questions that you put on the Q&A. Thank you very, very much to both of you. So Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a lot about Victoria and the greening? Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much, Gil, and welcome to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's a real honor to be invited to go for a walk in the park with Gil. And I don't know that he and I have actually walked in a park together, but we've certainly ridden our bikes together around Victoria. So as Gil said, I am the mayor of Victoria. I'm coming to the end of my second term as mayor. So I've been in office for 8 years and have worked very hard with my council, with the residents, and with our amazing hardworking staff to bring forward some of the projects that you're going to see. And really, as Gil said, to understand that we're in a world of very complex and concurrent crises, and parks and open spaces are one way to kind of multi-solve some of those crises, to address climate change and belonging and health and well-being and a whole bunch of other things, just by the way that we build our cities, and in particular our parks and public spaces and open spaces. None of what you will see today in the next slides would be possible without our amazing, hardworking city staff. And that's true in every city around the world. The politicians can have the big ideas, but it's the staff who not only need to implement the ideas, but our park staff here at the city takes such pride in the work they do in maintaining and stewarding these natural assets. So I just wanted to begin with a shout out to our staff team, who are amazing. So many of you, well, all of you will know that Canada is a colonial country, and the entire country was built on the homelands of Indigenous nations. And the city of Victoria in particular is on the homelands of the Songhees and Esquimalt people. And the first few slides are really going to highlight the work that we do with them in and through a process of reconciliation and even decolonization, to make sure that the original stewards of this land, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, have been here for thousands of years, to make sure that as we, particularly in an era of reconciliation, as we build our parks and open spaces, that the felt presence of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations show up in these places. So this slide here, it's an image of a spindle whorl, and these were traditionally used by Coast Salish women for knitting. This is obviously a giant one, and there are 7 of these around the city in parks and open spaces that signify culturally significant spaces for the Lekwungen people. Again, sticking with the theme of local Indigenous identity. And one of the things to really stress is that it's not an either or. It's not that we have to override colonial places with Indigenous names or erase Indigenous names and put colonial names. The process of decolonization and reconciliation is really about finding space for both in our cities. And this park here, it's a brand new park. It's the Peter Pollan Waterfront Park is its English name, and Jamathet is its Lekwungen name. Peter Pollan was a former mayor of Victoria, and he preserved this giant open space for future use as a park. So we wanted to name it after him because he had passed away quite recently. But again, we also wanted to understand the Indigenous use, the Indigenous history of this space. And Jamathet in Lekwungen means pouty mouth, and it refers to the shape of the land when viewed from the water, because of course the Songhees and Esquimalt, the Lekwungen speaking people, were water going people and traveled by canoe. So this park is an example of the blending of Indigenous and settler identities. And this park is not finished yet. There was a massive remediation done. It was very, very contaminated because it was a site of previous industry. It has now been declared uncontaminated, which is a good thing. But we are in a planning process with the community to come to a design for the park. So right now you can walk in it, you can sit, there are benches, but it's basically just grass. But we're working with the community and the nations to come up with something pretty spectacular. And on that note, this is a park now that is under construction. It's called Songhees Park. We opened a new bridge, multi-modal bridge from downtown to connect to the Victoria West community. And this park that you see here is also done in collaboration with the Songhees and Esquimalt. I think in this park, there are going to be recordings of Indigenous elders. So you can press a button and listen to the stories of the land while you're there. As you can see, it's a spectacular site. There'll be access right down to the water. And the design approach for this park focuses on the revitalization of wildlife habitat, natural environments, and local ecology. So some parks are good for playing soccer, and that's important. This park is really focusing on the restoration of biodiversity and the connection of people right down to the shoreline. And just again, to highlight the work that we do at the city in terms of connecting with Indigenous communities, the city council a few years ago created an Indigenous Artist-in-Residence position. And Dylan Thomas is our Indigenous Artist-in-Residence, and he has helped to design the park that I just showed you. And horizontal design at the bottom of the slide here will be integrated into the concrete seating at Songhees Park. And so we have in-house specialty Indigenous person working here to make sure, again, that the designs reflect local culture. All right, so let's move on from that. And again, it is really important to ground all of the work we do in the Songhees and Esquimalt traditions. And also we respond to the needs of our current residents and their desires for protection of the urban forest and natural areas. You can see in the slide here, myself and a group of residents, we are masked and we were very cold. It was a cold and rainy day, not a good day to have a park opening. But this is a small neighborhood pocket park. This is a park that the city purchased. It came up, well, it didn't really come up for sale. We went to the landowner and said, could we please buy this? And they thankfully said yes. And this was really pressed upon us by the community for many, many years. It was a private piece of land. It could have been developed into housing. And as you can see, there are Gary oak trees, which is a native species, and it's a relatively undisturbed piece of land. And so the city does make these small investments from time to time in purchasing new space when and where possible. Every year to protect and invest in this space and others, we invest $3 million to maintain the city's tree inventory, natural spaces, and to administer the tree protection bylaw. And I will talk a little bit about that in a few more slides. So our residents expect us to protect and enhance the urban forest and natural areas. We have in Victoria, I mean, it's a built out city, but there are still, thankfully, many Indigenous and original ecosystems, sensitive ecosystems, and natural areas. And of course, and Gil mentioned this in his comments, these are not only good places to go and be and recreate, but they also present many benefits: climate regulation and mitigation, adaptation, stormwater management. And we are really doing a lot of work, and our residents are with us, which is great. It's very difficult as a politician to do things when your residents are opposed, but our residents are very supportive of the management of our urban forest, of our parks, the protection of endangered habitats, monitoring species at risk, getting rid of invasive species. And we really, as you can see here, encourage community participation when and where possible, particularly with the planting of trees. And the city was part of the UN Trees in Cities Challenge. As you can see here, we don't just want to protect the urban forest, we want to continue to build out and grow the urban forest. And Gil mentioned our cycling network. We've used every opportunity possible while we're putting in bike lanes to plant more trees. There's nothing saying that you can't have trees alongside bikes. And as you can see, we've added the sidewalk to the left of the bikers, and we could have just left it as is, but we thought, let's put as many trees as possible. And so even in the downtown urban environment, whenever and wherever possible, we are putting in trees. But it's not enough to put in trees, we also need to protect them. And that's why in 2021, very recently, the city adopted a new tree protection bylaw to protect 50% more of the urban forest and to help grow the overall canopy, the urban forest canopy in the city through tree minimum requirements on all land being developed and a tighter restriction on the trees that can be cut down. And when a tree is cut down for development, and of course we always need to balance, 2 new trees need to be planted for every 1 tree that's removed. Now, sometimes our residents come and say, you know, that big old tree there has more climate benefits, more ecosystem services than these 2 new trees because they're small. But if it's a, you know, 50 or 60 or 100 unit rental building, which we also need, we say, yes, that's true. But in 100 years, these 2 new trees are going to provide the same kinds of services that the old tree does now. And I think one point I want to make, and this is really important, particularly for other elected officials who have these kind of tree wars sometimes with their residents, even though the city has been unprecedented building boom, and in between, you know, in the last 8 years, we've seen like more investment in new buildings than we've seen in a long time. Our tree canopy, so our urban forest canopy, has grown by the size of 50 football fields in that same time. So it's not homes versus trees. If we do a good job protecting the urban canopy, we can do both. And I think that's really important. Placemaking. So we love our parks, but we also love our open spaces. And the City of Victoria, and again, the staff have done a tremendous job in looking for opportunities when they're putting in bike lanes or when we're closing down streets to just put in small things like the yellow chairs or those, you know, weird shaped, colorful things where kids come and climb and play and musicians come and sit and play to make the public spaces more vibrant and alive. The red chairs there that you can see, and if you look closely, you'll see that those were former parking spots. That was very controversial to get rid of cars and have people sit on the oceanfront rather than cars, or people in cars, to be fair. And so we use every opportunity we can for these small interventions to make our public spaces more vibrant and more alive and more welcoming to people. One thing that we've created, and I'll put it in the chat afterwards, is a placemaking toolkit, and it was done with staff and residents all together. And it's very simple. It's a great toolkit if you want to do something small on your street, all the way to a city-led intervention. And I feel really proud of the staff and the community for coming up with the placemaking toolkit. And I think it's a really good and useful tool, not just here, but for many cities. Here are some more permanent installations. We've created these harvest tables every opportunity we get, so people can come. They're wheelchair accessible. People can roll right in, and they're in sunny, beautiful public spaces. You can see the ocean and the mountains in the background. And so we're really making sure that as we design these new spaces, that we're meeting the changing needs of community and residents, aging population. So we create and put benches wherever we can, growing city of families, and these small interventions, as you can see, the kids in the backpack on the dad's back, and there's a picnic happening, and it's just they're places to stop and stay that weren't there before, and we think that it's important to make those small investments. Another thing that's really important to all of us, again, in an aging city and in a city where you can get around any time of the year because there's not very much snow here, access to the waterfront. So as you can see, we've created a beach mat type scenario so that people in wheelchairs or who use wheelchairs can roll right down to the ocean and have access to the beach. And then you can see this is our pride and joy. It's a small little island with a tree in it. So even on docks, we plant trees. And this was a citizen-led initiative. They put it in without the city's permission and asked us for permission later, and we said yes. The tree is growing well, and this is a dock that you can't see the shore, but people swim from the shore out into this dock and back. So it creates a space and place even in the water for people to go and to recreate. Parks and open spaces in Victoria and every other city in the world are also used for recreation programs, particularly during the pandemic when indoor spaces were closed. We reclaimed Royal Athletic Park, which is usually used just for a baseball team, and ran tons of kids programs. And I've got a note into our director of parks because some kids have been asking me, are the programs going to be back this summer even though the pandemic is over? So hopefully the answer is yes, because they were highly attended. Unfortunately, our parks in emergency situations also become spaces where people live. And I'm kind of embarrassed, I am embarrassed as a Canadian elected official to show you this picture, but it is a reality. When the pandemic hit, homeless shelters closed, people who were staying with relatives, and everyone had to get into their bubbles. We had 400 people immediately out on the streets. And some of it was ad hoc, but again, we have this large park. It's called Topaz Park, and we thought, how could we use this space as a way to shelter people and provide some kind of respite? And you can see it looks very organized. Most tent encampments don't look like this. And that's because our fire department went and set up all of these tents in a very orderly way for people to come and to shelter. And we partnered with a number of agencies to make sure that there was food provided and washrooms and showers, and not a good situation. But again, it shows the versatility and the use of parks when necessary. Parks, going back to recreation, this is a beautiful new skate park, again, currently under construction. We're trying to get it open by the end of school this year so that as soon as school ends, people will, kids will, and teenagers will have a place to go. We already have one skate park in Victoria and it's very well used. This park is here because young people, and this was 5 or 6 years ago, it obviously takes a while to deliver these projects. Young people in a low income neighborhood came, and I remember this, they came and spoke to council in person and said, it's too far. The other skate park is too far. We don't have access to transportation. We can't get there. We've built this ad hoc skate park behind a community center, and they really have with wooden ramps and so on. Can you please build us a skate park in our own neighborhood? And council and staff responded to that presentation, and I think they had a petition with 200 signatures or something, and we are building this beautiful new skate park under construction right now, and it's spectacular. And again, it's very satisfying because this low income neighborhood, one of the lowest income neighborhoods in the city, now has one of the nicest parks in the city, and to me that feels good, and that feels really important. I won't touch too much on this, but I did want to highlight, as Gil did at the beginning, the multimodal infrastructure that we're building. Again, you can see opportunities alongside the bike paths, not just to have bike paths, but there's new native species planted to the right of the bikes, those beautiful yellow chairs that people love to sit in, and then using every opportunity we can. So the picture that is on the right, we had a sewage treatment plant built, dug up the roads, put in massive pipes, and instead of just putting the road back, we used the opportunity to create this walking and cycling path, again, right along the ocean. And I would really encourage any and all of you to come and visit us, because it is spectacular, and there's lots to do. And there's lots to do that is absolutely free. And that is really the benefit of parks and open spaces. They're accessible, they're free, and it's great opportunity. I've got a couple more slides, and I don't want to leave this presentation without talking about urban agriculture, yet another use for city park spaces. And again, this is a partnership between the city residents, city council, and city staff. We've had community gardens for years, but during the pandemic, city staff pivoted really quickly, recognized a need in the community of food insecurity, and because people were losing their jobs and couldn't buy food and so on. And we started a program called Get Growing Victoria. So the staff grow plants every year and in the greenhouses. And as COVID was hitting, the staff in addition to growing all of the plants that they usually grow, they began to plant edible food starts. And you can see some of these here. In the first year in 2020, they grew 81,500 lettuce plants, tomato plants, peas, carrot, everything you can imagine. And then we created a distribution network with residents and particularly our community center network to get these plant starts into the hands of people who otherwise would not have fresh vegetables. In addition, the city distributed 200 cubic yards of garden materials, so that we're not just giving away plants, we're helping people create gardens, and the community really seized on this. As you can imagine, coming out of the pandemic, nobody wanted to see this program disappear, so we're keeping it forever because it's been such a success. And this year in 2022, our city staff are growing over 100,000 vegetable plants to be distributed through 60 community organizations to Indigenous communities that will go out into the community and feed people. Community gardens, I mentioned, I won't touch too much on this, just to show you some beautiful pictures. We do have many community gardens, and we're creating more. And the city is, I think this year, next year or this year, building the first new community garden in a while. We usually leave it to community to do the garden building, and we support them, but because of the passion for food security, both at the staff level, at council level, and in the community, we're doing a city-led community garden. And this one down here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. This is a vacant lot in downtown where the downtown residents said, hey, nothing's happening with that space. Can we have it for a garden? It was the easiest yes we've ever said. And it's a thriving, not only a garden, but it's a thriving community. So looking to the future, we are going to continue to work on building parks, maintaining our biodiversity, stewarding our urban forest. And the reason we're doing this is not for all the good reasons that I've already said, not only for all of those reasons, but it really is the ethos of our community. There is something about being Victorian that that ties you to the land, that wants to steward and preserve this beautiful natural place for the well-being, not only of all of our human selves, but for the well-being of our non-human species as well. Gil, I will leave it there. Look forward to the discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you very, very much. Very exciting. And I want people, if you have questions, please type in your questions on the Q&A. The chat, let's leave the chat alone during the next presentation. And as soon as Anna is finished, then start using the chat. One of the beautiful things that Lisa was showing is how we need nature everywhere, at home, on the sidewalks, on the parks, on the bike lanes, everywhere. And now we are going to hear from Deputy Mayor Ana Oregi from Vitoria-Gasteiz in the Basque region in Spain. Ana, thank you very much and welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and Vitoria-Gasteiz.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. I am Ana Oregi. It's really my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon for me. And it's a really pleasure to share with you, Gil, and with Lisa from Victoria. And I am currently deputy mayor for 3 years here in Vitoria-Gasteiz. But previously, I served as a member of the parliament in Basque Country, and also I served as a Minister of Territory and Environment in the Basque Country. I started my career as a civil servant as urban planner in Vitoria-Gasteiz. And so my involvement with this city is very long. I am here in this current post for 3 years, but my whole career is linked with Vitoria-Gasteiz. So let's start it. I would like to begin with a brief description of Vitoria-Gasteiz. My city is a medium city, 250,000 inhabitants. And it is the largest municipality in the Basque Country in terms of surface area. It is divided into 3 perfectly differentiated areas. 1/3 is urban, residential, industrial, and infrastructures. A second third is agricultural, and the last third is natural and also forestry. Vitoria-Gasteiz's commitment to sustainability goes back a long, long way. In 1940, we signed the Untitled Chapter, the first city in Spain to do so. In 1998, we joined the local Agenda 21. And in 2008, we joined the Mayor's Climate and Energy Commitment. In 2012, we were named European Green Capital. And finally, in 2019, we were named Green Global Award. All this has been happening thanks to agreement and consensus between the different political forces of the city. Mayors of different political backgrounds have succeeded each other in the leadership of the city, but the commitment to sustainability policies has remained unchanged over time, and I think that is very, very, very important. A long tradition of raising public awareness has led to these sustainability policies being fully internalized by the citizens and forming part of the identity of Vitoria-Gasteiz. The key to a balanced city designed on a human scale lies, in my opinion, in the integrated planning of urban policies reflected in the municipality's general urban development plan. The urban and industrial expansion of Vitoria-Gasteiz from the 60s and 80s resulted in the occupation of a large area of fertile land of agricultural and natural interest, and an impact on natural areas surrounding the city, such as rivers and banks, hedges, and small wooded areas. In the urban periphery, alongside the new industrial estates, graveyards, landfills, orchards began to proliferate, as well as unlawful activities such as slum housing and poaching. The outskirts had become a physical and social barrier between the city and the countryside. There was increased flooding in the north of the city due to the construction of industrial buildings and on the floodplains of the river around the city. Erosion due to the creation of roads and mining activity, water and soil pollution caused by spill of all kinds, hedges and riverbanks were cleared. In short, there was a significant decline in biodiversity and in the quality of the landscape, water and soil. At the beginning of the 90s, the periphery was a highly degraded space, although it still had some natural vestiges that had managed to survive the city's expansion. To regenerate the degraded periphery, in 1992, the city decided to implement a large-scale project that encompassed the entire peri-urban area and provided a solution to both the most developed and the most natural areas from an environmental, landscaping and social perspective. The project proposed the creation of a network of natural and semi-natural green spaces around the cities, peri-urban parks, which would be interconnected. This idea had already been considered in the city master plan that was in force at the time, which proposed the extension of the urban green area system to include the areas of the periphery. And so it was the Vitoria-Gasteiz Green Belt project was created. The aim was to conserve the natural spaces that had managed to survive and allow the rest of the degraded areas, most of them publicly owned, to recover, to connect them with each other and with the natural surroundings and urban green spaces. We constructed a multifunctional space, a multifunctional green belt, what is a key space of the municipal ecological frameworks, as it allows nature to permeate into the inner city. It provides a habitat for highly valuable animal species, some endangered, plays a primary role in the flood abatement of the rivers that enter the city, acts as a green lung, etc. From a social point of view, it is an ideal space for public recreation and hosts activities of all kinds, leisure, sports, educational, and training. Over time, the Greenbelt has consolidated its place as one of the iconic identifying features of Vitoria-Gasteiz and an environmental, scenic, cultural, social, and tourist resource of the highest order, generating a new relationship between nature and society. The Greenbelt has served as an experimental and demonstrative space for a number of measures and nature-based solutions to solve a whole host of problems related to water, management, biodiversity, saving natural resources, public uses. The challenge now is to transfer the philosophy of action applied in the Greenbelt to the whole city. That's in the current scenario, with climate change and other more local problems seriously affecting urban habitability in the form of heat islands, flooding, pollution, naturalizing cities and creating green infrastructures has become a priority on urban agendas. Until a few years ago, urban green areas were conceived with a fundamentally aesthetics and leisure functions and were managed as such in the form of large lawn areas with high mountain rates, frequent irrigation, low biodiversity, in fact. However, such places properly managed can provide many other ecosystem services which are essential to life in cities. This is how Vitoria-Gasteiz has understood that by taking advantage of having a green belt with high levels of biodiversity, it has proposed to naturalize urban green spaces as much as possible in order to improve the quality of life in the city. The results of the interventions and forms of management applied in the Greenbelt related to flood prevention and increased biodiversity offer the opportunity to replicate them within the whole city. In this way, the Greenbelt becomes the seat of the urban green infrastructure of Vitoria-Gasteiz. In 2014, Vitoria-Gasteiz approved the Urban Green Infrastructure Strategy with the aim of naturalizing green spaces and other areas of opportunity, thus increasing biodiversity in the city and consequently ecosystem functions and services. To develop the strategy, a network system was first designed, Urban Green Infrastructure System in Vitoria-Gasteiz, to connect the main urban green spaces, the nodes, with each other and with the green belt, the core elements, through axis and tree-line streets. Here you can see a section of our city. Is started by the medieval town, the medieval city in the center of the city, and in a hill, and we have some consolidated neighborhoods, new neighborhoods, and finally we have the green belt, and we have the different solutions to naturalize the city, the different spaces or parts of the city. During these years, multiple interventions have been carried out in parks, streets, squares, plots, streams, and other places that act as nodes, connectors, core spaces, and auxiliary elements of the systems. We did over 100 performances. We did some of them, and another one are planned as you say here. We have in our urban infrastructure plan, we have we deploy through a catalog 111 projects of different types, of different scales, of different places, and in different degrees of execution. You can see there, the green belt is our core element, and now we are introducing all these elements of the biodiversity into the city. That's the plan we are involved in, and now I am going to pass some examples of the things we are doing in this green infrastructure plan. For example, we have here peri-urban forest. We remodel an ecological and landscape improvement in a park near to the city. It's an old forest, and we have a lot of benefits. We have thermal regulation, high biodiversity, sport and leisure. It's a daily city-nature connection, very close to the city, as you see. Another one is the recovery of the Salburua wetland. We have here that's a core element in the green belt, and we have we recover here this element, and now is a place very estimated by our citizens. We have resources for training and education. We have a visitor center here with 100,000 visitors every year, and we have a very high level of biodiversity and animals and also flowers, plants, etc. It's another one. We have green itineraries, and in this case we have a green way of the old Vasco Navarro. The Vasco Navarro was an old train but disappeared some years ago, and we have we did a route around the green belt for 33 kilometers, and this route is connecting all the parks in Vitoria-Gasteiz with the green park, with the green belt, and also with the network of green routes of Álava. Álava is the territory of the Basque Country, is one of the territories of the Basque Country. So we connected with this green ways all the spaces for leisure and for work or bike. In this case, we recover a stream with the construction of a new neighborhood, that stream was absorbed, and the functionality was very compromised, very limited by the strong urbanization of its banks. And so in order to recover the ecological connectivity, we plant trees, flowers, and we terraced also the slopes. And now we have this beautiful corridor here in the center of a new neighborhood here in Vitoria. That's another intervention. Here, several white medians have been worked on the transform. We transformed them into urban green corridors. And to this end, small mounds of earth have been created, forming a wavy topography, as you see here. And on them, large trees, shrubs, colorful flowers have been planted, and we recover a lot of biodiversity here. That is the same idea as in Victoria. These allotments are located on one plot of municipal property here, and became vacant as a result of the real estate slowing down of recent years. So the allotments, we put the municipality put some services here, water and some tools, and they are managed by people from the neighborhood under the supervision of the city council, and are in very great demand. We are now proposing most of these areas in other neighborhoods in the city. This is another one. We have also in some spaces in the city, installations of aquatic vegetation in pots, creation of access escape ramps in the area, and creation also of refuges for fauna and plantations, and there are places with a very big demand from the citizens. That's another one. We recover a old square to put a big open air market with local production. We try also to connect the production, the agricultural production around the city in the middle of the urban area. So we propose this area for the local production, and with playgrounds for people for children, maintaining the tree canopy also, and playing with water landscape, etc. That's another thing very interesting in our city. In our city, everybody walk all the time. It's very normal. We have historical promenades linking the city with the outskirts, and it's very usual for people here in Vitoria, finishing walking, studying, and go for a walk. And we maintain all these historical promenades in the center of the city. That's another intervention. I think it's very interesting too. We recover here it was a building from the 80s, I think, and we propose a facade, a green facade, with based on the idea of recreating the nature of the natural surroundings of Vitoria-Gasteiz, with vertical garden that contains the main plant species of the municipality. And we have a very beautiful effect, but also we have a very important effect in the insulation, and also acoustic insulation, and also weather insulation. Here, another intervention in street renovation, very successful. Here we recover the water in the city. I think it's important also to have our rivers. Some of our old rivers are not in the surface, are underground. So here we recover one of them, and we recover also all the biodiversity linked to the water here. And now I will explain two more things here we are working on. Here you have the medieval area in Vitoria-Gasteiz. The medieval town is very beautiful, but is very narrow streets. It's very difficult to put green into the whole area of the city. So now we are trying to do it. And we are naming it the micro landscapes. We are working in these micro landscapes, and we are trying several different species of plants to learn what are happy in our old town, and some of them can do a very big difference then. So we are doing with the neighbors of the whole area, and we propose floral compositions in some small places. Also, we try to find very small spaces to put some green. Sometimes it's only a plant, sometimes it's a tree, sometimes it's a little water. But we are working on that in that moment. And that's the last one. We are working hard in the renaturalizations of the schoolyard. We have the program. This program emerged in response to a growing demand from the educational community to change and to transform the school playgrounds. The school playgrounds, in the majority of playgrounds were football or basket playgrounds. So we started naturalizing, proposing outdoor activities linking with nature. And now we initiated the project, and this is the first one, and now we are working in other five for this year. And the idea is to propose working with the school communities 5-6 schoolyard per year. And I think that's all. Thank you very much. Eskerrik asko in Basque.
Thank you very, very much. Lots of fantastic lessons for communities of any size, anywhere. And I hope to see you soon. I thank you for having come on this session. And I invite everybody in 2 weeks to learn about ciclovías and open streets around the world. Have a wonderful morning, Lisa, evening, Anna, and everyone, wherever you are. Take care.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gil.
Take care, Anna. Nice to see you again.
Okay.
Yes, cheers, Lisa.
Bye.